Okay, here we go. Yeehaw. Um, for those that attend in class, you heard a lot of this already, but here's a reiteration. And then for those of you who are online, this will bring you up to speed as far as lectures are concerned. Let me get my computer settled here. I do this in one of my study areas at home, so sometimes it's not the best situation. But away we go. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's what us Marines do. Prior to 1950, um, oh, by the way, this is a history of family therapy, just in case you couldn't guess. Prior to 1950, I was born in 48. 1950 was kind of a break point in this psychotherapy business as far as marriage and family is concerned. It wasn't that the family wasn't always excluded; it just wasn't a normal thing to have family involvement. If you came to see a counselor, in my case, if you came to see a therapist, that focus would have been on you. There wouldn't be much mention of anything else because you're the one coming, right? Uh, but there was a character. There was a therapist, Murray Bowen, uh, who began to see that his methods, which were commonplace with all therapists, just didn't really seem to work. There wasn't a long lasting change. And that's what we look for as counselors and psychotherapists. I won't go into that big difference because it's not really a big difference. One's a little more current than the other, but we'll worry about that some other time. Uh, but he noticed there wasn't much of a change, and this was kind of in a hospital setting. Um, so what he did was he began to. Sorry about that. My wife is dinging in. Like I said, sometimes this is not the best place in the world to do this. Um, so what he noticed was in hospital settings, um, he was able to study relationships and relationships as in family dynamics. And what he noticed was that he may be doing psychotherapy for an individual, but unless things around them changed, then he didn't have a lot of success. It was a very high failure rate. I don't know what the percentages were, so low, medium, high works here. So there were things that he realized that needed to be addressed as a family unit, not just as an individual in the family. So with that in mind, he changed his tactics and family therapy became a thing. Psychoanalysis when the whole family's involved. So it developed over time. Small group dynamics. I mentioned this in class. I don't think I did a good job explaining this there, so I'll do it again. Small group dynamics. What's a small group? Your little family unit. Not like talking to a classroom of 30 people, but talking to mom, dad, and however many children are there, depending on the family and their background. Usually, what's the average? Still 2.5. I don't think I've ever seen a half of a child, but I think the statistics that used to be popular, 2.5 was the average number of children that a family had. Weird. Um, but what was determined was there needed to be a dynamic. There needed to be something going on within the unit. So how did he make it work? Well, he used collaboration. He used confrontation, gentle confrontation. Confrontation meaning that you confronted. Lori. Sorry, guys. Well, there you go. Life happens, right? Wife telling me she wanted Chinese food for dinner. So guess what I'm having for dinner tonight? Okay, so meanwhile, back at the ranch. Um, I mentioned confrontation. Collaboration, you understand that. Confrontation confuses people. They think I'm going to get in somebody's face as a counselor. No, no, no. Confronting the aspects of what's going on. In other words, not denying but admitting. Now, there is a confrontational kind of therapy where you do, in essence, get in somebody's face, but not enough to cause somebody to want to bust your nose for you. But that's a confrontational kind of thing. This is a little different. Also, negotiation of issues. Let's sit down and talk about this. Let's say, I'll give you a personal example when probably shouldn't because it's not a wise thing to do, but just to make this real life. My wife drives me crazy when we're ready to go somewhere. I've got too much United States Marine in me. When they told me to get up and go, I got up and went right now. And my wife doesn't do that. She says, "Well, let's go walk the dog." Okay, and then 30 minutes later, we're going out the door. So drives me nuts. But that's kind of what we're talking about here. Negotiations. I'm gonna talk to her one day. I'm gonna say, "Well, look, make it 15 minutes, and I'll be happier." Whatever the case is. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, these are things that became tools for family therapists, not walking dogs, and then it just evolved into what it is today. Social workers were some of the people that got sucked into this practice of doing some counseling. Had to be careful with social work. They're not trained counselors, so to speak. But a lot of people got involved in this stuff. So it garnered the attention of a lot of people. And it even crossed over lines, like, for instance, into your textbook talks about this schizophrenia. Families who had a member who suffered schizophrenia, maybe they came for counseling, and you involved the whole bunch, and you used the methods that Bowen had put together in the past. So the bottom line to all this is family therapy is exactly what it says. Family therapy means family therapy. It means everybody's involved. You have to consider, sorry, you have to consider influences. So the therapy you choose, the model that you choose to incorporate into a family therapy system has to be, see if a good way to put this so that it makes good sense. I'm not just going to throw a dart at a dartboard and say, oh, okay, let's use REBT, because that's where the dart went. I have to know what your family dynamics are. There are external influences in a family that cause internal turmoil. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So I want to base my therapy, my choice of therapy, on changing organization of the family. Why would it be messed up? Well, they're adapting. There's an adaptation to external forces, and it may not maintain fluidity within the family interaction and function. I hope that makes sense. So it could be that, and I think we did this. I don't think we did. We did this exercise in class where we talked about influences and impacts. Are the kids a major influence? Let's say the father's got a problem, and the scenarios brought up in class by you folks that were in class were just outstanding. I was so pleased because you did a really good job, and I was pleasantly surprised that you had as much intuitive knowledge as you did. That's good. But at any rate, we needed to know the impacts. Is the father impactful more so than the wife? Or the children more impactful? So on and so forth. You have to interview and come to an understanding as to who's impactful, who's being impacted, and how to work those dynamics. Uh, when you give people a safe place to talk, uh, and they trust you, then the chances of having uh, healing take place go way, way up. You have to be also motivational. You have to motivate the family uh, and the person who is the subject of all of the therapy. You have to motivate them in the realm of wanting to change. So I need to put together a therapy process that will work toward that. Bowen family systems uh, tend to be more psychotherapy oriented than counseling oriented. So, uh, a Bowen family approach would be a look at past. What's the history between you and your wife, for example, if you're having these time problems, for example, or whatever the case is. And then each kind of therapy does a different thing. So Bowen would look at maybe the childhood of the victim, which is strictly psychotherapy. Uh, you would most likely, were you practicing Bowen type therapy, would have been involved with this family for quite a bit of time. Um, the Somebody that's using cognitive behavior therapy, it's called cognitive behavioral family therapy. It's the same thing as CBT. It's just family oriented. May ask you more about emotions. How do you feel as you're coming home? Because you know what's inside the door there. Are you irritable, or what are you? Uh, do you have to calm yourself? Do you get angry as soon as you get off work because you know you're going home? Structural therapists, structural family therapy. Uh, you may confront the client and make them face the maybe hidden ideas that they are putting something ahead of the family. Maybe you are failing to admit that to yourself, and that's causing friction in the family. You don't even recognize that that's the problem. And then a strategic family therapist. These are just examples of what kind of therapy you might get involved with. Uh, if there is great tension in the family and there are not a lot of words spoken, one of the ideas that sound outlandish is to have heated discussions in front of the children. So at least the children know that the mom and dad are speaking to each other. I'm not too sure that I'm in support of that myself personally. Uh, I think that you have to really be hyper vigilant if you're going to suggest that they do that. If you came to me, I would say, are you speaking? Matter of fact, I did a therapy session quite a few years ago where the couple came to me and wanted marital counseling, and I said, okay, fine. We set up a time, and they came to the session, and uh, as they came to me, they said, by the way, we're not speaking to one another. And I thought, okay, well, that's not uncommon. And my question to them was, are you communicating at all? Because when you say I'm not speaking to this other person, do you literally mean I am not speaking? Well, they literally meant that they weren't speaking to one another. I said, wow. I said, so what is there any form of communication? Yes, we text each other. And I said, in the house, in the same house. Yes, we don't speak, we text. If there's something, and I had two young kids. So I thought, this ought to be pretty interesting. And I brought them in. We sat down, had them face each other, depends on what you want to do with that. Sometimes you don't want to do that. Depends. Had them face each other, and we began with the husband because the wife told me she wanted him to start, and we began the little pre kind of stuff interview. And as soon as he would hit a sore point, her thumbs were going wild on her phone, and his phone was going ding, 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 ding. And then it was repeated when it became her turn. She would hit a sore point, and his thumbs would be going crazy. And that was their form of communication. And we went on for about 10 minutes of that. And I said, I don't really think that you guys are getting this. That's not the way we approach the pathway to healing. So they thanked me, and they went and got a second opinion, and then they got divorced. So there you go. Got to communicate. So a strategic family approach. Uh, I would not have asked them to have an argument in front of their children. Most likely, what I would have, if it had we gotten to that point in therapy, I would have said, let's bring the kids in and let's have a discussion and see how it goes. So that's really a brief synopsis of how this stuff began. You obviously have a reading assignment. I want you to be very cognizant of this circle versus lines approach. There's a whole section on that. It's titled Family Therapists Think in Circles, Not in Lines. And it's the basis for a lot of the therapy that's done. So I hope this didn't blow your mind. It was full of interruptions and a couple of weird examples, but that's the way life goes. So I shall see you next time virtually, and for you in-class folk, I'll see you Tuesday.